Hello, welcome to the Pop Off PC Mag's video game show. I'm Jordan Miner. There's a lot going on with Xbox in the past weeks, days, really the past like 25 years that this thing has existed. But it's really been heating up. So we're gonna talk about all the Xbox drama, news, all that. So join me here. We have Zach.
Hello, Jordan. Nice to be back in the studio and in person with people.
Yeah, you're touching me.
Yeah, touching the first time.
I didn't say you could do that.
No, I didn't mean. Sorry, I should have asked first.
So enough of you. And Gabe.
I am here. This is Gabriel Zamora. The first time actually in person recording one of these, which is nice.
Cool. So we're talking about, that's a good beginning of the year of us being together. So let's talk about the end of the Xbox.
Oh yeah, wow, long time coming.
No,
Depending on who you ask.
So the Xbox isn't going away, obviously, but there were all these rumors that kind of kicked up, toward the beginning of this year that Xbox are gonna put Starfield on PlayStation and Indiana Jones and all their games, all their exclusive games, and bring them to multiple platforms, and it got people wondering like, well, what's the strategy? What's happening to the Xbox? So Phil Spencer and Matt Booty and Sarah Bond, their leadership team, they had this podcast that could have been an email where they laid out at least the first concrete details of this strategy, where they said, no, it's not our whole lineup. It's just these 4 games. Yeah. That's all we're talking about right now. I don't think that's the end of it. We can talk about kind of what we think the future is. But first, let's talk about just what the 4 games are and kind of our thoughts on that.
Which they didn't announce it at the time. So now we know, thanks to yesterday's Nintendo Direct, we know those 4 games are Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. All smaller tier games, I would say, like B tier.
Well,
maybe?
I would call Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment smaller but acclaimed kind of B tier games. But Sea of Thieves and Grounded, I think, they're like more live service games.
Yeah. They've been around for a little longer too.
Right, and those are games that just need a critical mass of players to stay relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
I was expecting those. Those seem like the safest games to cross over and the ones that make the most sense. I mean, last year, Hi-Fi Rush, I thought it was one of the better games of the year. And one of Xbox's brightest that I think got overshadowed by the wealth of other 2023 hits. I'm glad to see Hi-Fi Rush finding a larger audience potentially on the PS5, and Pentiment, which is on the Switch and the PS5, also a great game that was overlooked. And I mean, Game Pass is great because you get these day one releases, but there's so much content on Game Pass, so many different games of different quality and stuff like that. And a game like Pentiment can easily get overshadowed by that. So it's nice to see it get some like a resurgence, another chance at life.
What do you think, Gabe?
Fair enough. I mean, I think that like some of these games did slip my radar, in all honesty. Like I actually was trying to remember what Pentiment was at first. I'm like, what game was that again? I know I played and loved Hi-Fi Rush, and it's definitely a game that I think should get a bigger audience. It was very clever with how it used the timing mechanics and all. I love action game. That's my thing. So for me, any reason to play an action game is just great. So I might even pick it up a second time, in all honesty. I mean, technically, I didn't pick it up the first time. They sent me code. So I might buy it.
You're doing your job.
I'm doing my job. Yeah. So I might actually buy a copy this time on PlayStation. And like as you were saying, like with the live service games, it does make sense. It could be maybe, I don't know, this is all speculation, that the gamer population in these games are dwindling and they're just kind of opening up the market a little bit to get more players in, some fresh blood. I don't really feel any particular way about this, like negatively. It seems like a positive overall. That being said, not to change the subject, but Xbox hasn't really been releasing a whole lot lately anyways. Yeah. So I think that's more of my concern. It's less to do with them sharing their games on and making them multi-platform, and more, where are the games, period? Where are the games? Yeah. Starfield is okay. I'm not a big,
okay. Yeah.
not a big Bethesda sort of RPG sort of guy, but it's fine. It is what it is. But what else are we going to get? Like Xbox is buying so many IPs and so many companies, and I understand that the Activision thing just went through only a few months ago. Yeah. They don't have anything to show for it yet. But announce something. You don't have to show gameplay yet, but like, hey, we're working on something to kind of assuage the concerns of your fan base. And, you want how much is an Xbox now? Like $400 or something, $300?
Something like that, yeah.
You want
Depending
to know
on
that
the
your
model,
investment
yeah.
is worthwhile. You don't want to sit there with a paperweight in the back room wondering, well, what am I going to do with this?
But to that end, Gabe, they've also announced so many games already that we have not heard much. Or
Everwild,
Everwild,
and Fable, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
and so like their developer.
Perfect Dark.
I thought
Oh,
the
yeah, you're
developer
right.
direct was great because it showed a lineup of games that are actually coming out this year. So I think for the first time since the Series X release, I felt excited about what Xbox would be producing.
And those games are Avowed, I believe,
Yeah,
and
Indiana
Indiana Jones
Jones.
and The Great Circle.
Yes.
Um,
Hellblade.
Hellblade 2, yeah, that got a date for May.
Yes.
So yeah, but yeah, I kind
And
of
the
agree.
strategy game. I forget what it was called.
Yeah, I forget too. That's because
Yeah, that was kind of my going back to that. You guys are absolutely right. They did announce some games.
I was about to agree with you though about
nothing I really.
guess.
It's nothing I really cared about.
No,
Unfortunately, I don't really care about Indiana Jones. I don't really.
And
you
what's
know.
what's the also the value of these exclusives if there's now this doubt in your mind, like, oh, if I just wait a year,
Yeah, exactly.
they probably will come to other platforms.
And like they said that these games are going to be like these four. They have no plans for anything after, and these 4 games are coming out pretty soon. Pentiment's already out.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush comes out in March and Grounded in April.
Yeah.
And Sea of Thieves, I assume maybe it'll take a little longer, but
I think it's like April. As
Okay,
well.
so
it's soon. It's
So
soon.
right,
Yeah.
they had these at the ready. They just need to get more games out the door, and I think the way they spoke in the podcast to me felt like they wanted to shift the perception of how games are coming out. You know, like when they talked about exclusives, I think that games have become so expensive in order to make money off of these ballooning budgets. They have to factor in game releasing outside of their main hardware. You know, I mean, $200 million, $300 million budget. You need to sell millions of copies to make that back, and if the game doesn't hit and it flops, then that just means
It kills the whole studio.
it kills the whole
potentially.
studio.
Yeah.
Another studio goes down with it. I think the way he spoke about exclusives was a little concerning because to me it didn't seem like they were going to change what they were doing. That they were going to continue putting out these high budget games. And yeah, if they hit, we might get this beautiful cinematic, like gorgeous game. But if they don't, you know, pop off to hit a ring. But if they don't pop off the way they want them to, then they're going to, I think, expand their borders a little more.
I mean, I'm no economist. I'm just a simple country hyper chicken. But Microsoft has like $1 trillion market cap. They are a gigantic company, and again, they are spending billions of dollars on these acquisitions. They are like going to the mat, fighting the government over it.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you're right, but on the other hand, it's like it becomes almost like this weird vicious cycle for them, where it's like we're spending all these like what. You would think that the reason to make these acquisitions would be to get exclusives.
Yes.
But then they've acquired so much that's so big that now they've kind of forced themselves that they can't make them exclusive because that would just be a loss of money.
Right, and that's just weird.
Yeah.
And that's
They can't make Call of Duty exclusive. They can't
It's
make
impossible,
Minecraft and World of Warcraft. Like all these things now are just already multi-platform.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And they're going to continue at least for 10 years or so. I know at least Call of Duty is going to be for everyone for the next 10 years at least.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, you know, they'll say this. The thing that they're betting on is that, you know, they'll have the option for anyone to get in however they want, but they're going to try to, you know, steer people towards Game Pass as their vision of becoming like the Netflix of games. But we were saying kind of off mic that Game Pass subscriptions are not like phenomenal.
For the longest time, I was under the assumption that Game Pass was really, really just hitting these high numbers. And I think comparatively, what did we say?
It was like 30 some million.
So it's
Yeah.
about like what Nintendo Switch is getting with its subscriptions, which is good. And it's not bad, but it's not really like outstandingly like, oh my God, everybody's got this sort of thing. Like I was under the assumption that this is just like
And they
going
don't
crazy
report-
with subscriptions.
And
And that's not
they don't
really the case.
report the Xbox sales anymore, so you can't really Game Pass to
because they're
Xbox.
bad.
Well, yeah.
because they're kind of mid. Yeah, and also they were also just spending so much money on Game Pass to kind of lure companies to put their stuff on it. So again, who even knows what the economics of that are?
Right.
I mean, that's just the economics of all streaming services.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm also not factoring in, like you're saying, economics. Like the subscription to like Nintendo is like what, $20 a year as opposed to Xbox Live, which is $15 a month or something like that. So obviously the numbers add up.
It's Xbox Game Pass core.
Game
now.
Pass,
Right, exactly. But that's a good point too of like semantics. But like Xbox Live was a really powerful brand.
It was.
Oh yes, exactly.
That they've kind of
definitely.
Yes. And they've kind of lost all of that. I don't know. I feel like for me the Xbox currently, and I don't want to disparage, but it is it's the only way I can play my old Xbox games. So this is like the kind of like emulation machine. Not emulation, but you know what I mean.
The retro classic gaming machine.
The backwards compatible console, which is great.
They've done great. They've been great in that arena for years.
Right,
yeah.
and that's
but they also haven't updated that arena.
They don't intend to. Supposedly, they said that their last Xbox, what was it, the backwards compatibility update would be the last one that they have. And there's still some games that kind of wish I could play again. Like I've been itching to play Anarchy Reigns,
nice.
And I can't play it anymore. My Xbox 360 doesn't work, so I'm stuck. And then Platinum's not going to port it to PC because sales were abysmal. So what am I supposed to do? Not really. Can't really enjoy that game. And then I don't know. I want to be able to play like a new Ninja Gaiden game on Xbox and be like, yeah, this is worth it. I don't feel that way anymore. Like it's fine.
But that's a good point about the legacy stuff. Like we joke about, Xbox is going away, who cares, whatever. But like, there's lots of people who have been invested in the Xbox ecosystem for like decades.
Exactly.
Want to know that their games are safe and that I have a Series S. I love it. It's affordable. It's the only next gen console that isn't like completely hideous. So I like having it around. And also just in terms of keeping the industry like competitive and
absolutely,
removing one of these kind of big players, I think would just be bad for the industry, I think.
Yeah.
So they've limited right now just these 4 games, but I don't think that
I think
it'll keep going.
Come.
Yeah. So what do we see as them doing? What do we see as the kind of the next steps of this strategy? I guess.
Well, I was gonna say I think they're gonna keep Activision stuff multi-platform. I think everything that's already multi-platform, they're going to continue doing that. Minecraft is like a beast of its own. They're not going to change any of that. And Call of Duty is also going to rule every system. The thing I thought that was interesting about Microsoft's third-party output so far, a lot of it has been smaller studios and studios that I guess aren't the main Microsoft game studios, like Obsidian. Obsidian is responsible for Grounded and Pentiment.
Yes.
The folks, it's a Bethesda developer, but they did a Hi-Fi Rush.
Tango Gameworks.
Yes.
Tango.
Yeah. Which are fairly small, and Rare, which I mean, I love Rare, but I love Rare because I'm 31 years old. I don't they haven't really put anything out that really like struck a chord with me in decades. But Rare is also kind of like I want to say it's not quite.
We used to call them second parties back in the day, I feel, even though they are fully owned by Microsoft.
No, they're definitely swinging. I think second tier. But that's that aside. I mean, these are. I feel like I don't mean to say second tier in a derogatory way, but these are not Microsoft's heavy hitters. No Halos,
right?
No Gears of War. Stuff that's like cemented in the minds of gamers as like Xbox branded. Yeah. I don't think any of that is gonna come by anytime soon. But I think that other Bethesda, I think Starfield has a chance of maybe coming. I mean, apparently also it was in the works for the PS5 before Microsoft stepped in.
Right. I mean that Redfall as well.
Yeah.
Because that acquisition was like 2020, and that game is way older than 2020.
So I think that there's credence for some of those games that aren't really cemented in gamers' minds as Xbox games, and especially other games that I think mesh with other systems, perhaps in a genre sense or a visual sense. I thought Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment to me made perfect Switch games. Mm-hmm. And even though Hi-Fi Rush didn't make it on Switch, Pentiment I feel like it's a perfect type of Switch game. You want to take that game with you to play it, and it's such a like pleasant game.
It's not super technically demanding,
right? It's pleasant to look at no matter the screen. So it's the perfect game to kind of like lay up, with a 7-inch tablet away, just in front of your face.
Someone on the street asks you, should I buy an Xbox? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, I kind of agree at this point.
I mean, in Xbox's defense, please don't kill me here, but if someone asked me if a PS5 was worth it, I'd be like, unless it's something you really want to play on it, that's also not worth it either. But that's beside the point.
Sony also bringing lots of their games to PC as well.
Yeah.
Helldivers 2, we just saw was day and date.
Yes, and I think that, I mean, speaking of Helldivers 2, that's definitely going to be part of their plan going forward. They're definitely going to consider more day one PC ports. And I mean, you know, I know we're dogging on the Xbox, but Sony is not clear of any wrongdoing. I mean, there's no, I mean, if someone asked me, like, Xbox or PS5, I mean, like, there's like 5 PS5 exclusives.
Yeah.
And there's
2 of them are Spider-Man.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of nuts how we're 4 years into this thing and still there's really nothing to speak for it.
You're going to say?
Yeah, it's just, my thing is that I think the biggest issue, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, is that a lot of these games, they're like AAA, or as Ubisoft claimed, quadruple A, with ridiculously bloated budgets. And because of that, and because they're constantly like testing these things and QAing everything, and it has to be this online service nonsense, you're not getting any games out anytime soon. There's no like, you know, AA games, A games, B games. Like, you guys aren't putting anything out. You're just putting all your eggs in one basket, which is, we need a live service game that's going to do, you know, gangbusters. And that's, you know, and then it doesn't happen. You guys lose money and then you just throw it out. 6 months later, no one cares about the game anymore because nobody's playing it. And now you on to the next project. 4 years later, you get another trash game that nobody wants to play. And it's just like, you know, you could release smaller games. Like, Helldivers is doing really well right now.
Oh,
and that was a $30 game.
And compare the number, 40, but compare the numbers to Suicide Squad. And Suicide Squad, millions of dollars, 9-year development cycle.
Yeah.
Versus Helldivers 2. Much shorter, much cheaper, and overall.
And these are games that I want to play. Like, go on social media right now and everybody's talking about Helldivers. They're like, wow, this is really fun. Democracy,
let
great
the
stuff.
record show. I called Helldivers.
Yeah, I still kind of don't believe you, honestly.
I called it. I was like, this might be the game of the month.
Yeah. And just, you know, this kind of scenario you're describing it too, I feel like it's also just kind of healthier for workers. You know, we're seeing waves and waves of gigantic layoffs because these big games they spent, or, you know, years of their lives on don't hit. Or also they'll like, you know, they'll leave the studio during the development process and kind of even can't like claim that they, like, it's really important to say that you like shipped the game on your resume. And so they can't even claim that. You know, just having more smaller games would kind of help from that end as well.
Yeah.
The kind of last thing I'll say here is, some of what we're seeing is sort of broader market forces. I think the multi-platform stuff is just the way that they're just kind of going because, you know, they need to just expand their audience even at the expense of the hardware. Yeah. It's kind of almost like the evolution of the hardware being sold at a loss to, you know, to get more people in for the games, which is their real business. So I think that's, you know, that is kind of, some of that is inevitable and not even like the worst thing in the world. Yeah. But I do think that Xbox in particular is operating from like this real place of weakness, which is weird to not acknowledge, I feel.
Yeah.
Like they are like, I think more so than they need to, like devaluing their hardware. And if they're okay with that, they're okay with that. Yeah. But
I think even mentioning that they have a bigger, like a stronger, more powerful system on the horizon that they're already thinking about is devaluing the series.
Right. Yeah. Further. Yeah. On one hand, it's trying to reassure people, hey, we're not leaving, but also like, this kick to the curb.
We're already one step ahead of that. We don't care about that anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they've been playing defense since the Xbox One. Yeah. Like once they dropped the ball with that, they've just been racing to catch up, and they just haven't quite gotten there yet.
The 360 is a gigantic fluke, I feel, the more time goes by. That system was fantastic.
It was great.
It was hugely innovative, had a ton of great games, and they've not been able to... A real Sega Genesis for our era.
They have never been able to recapture the Blade dashboard.
Right.
Like, look at this. What is this? I hate it. I don't hate it, but you know what I mean.
So Xbox, you know, I have one. I play it. Games keep coming out for it. As PC Mag, I feel like we're especially kind of following, you know, Microsoft's whole business here. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah. So Hellblade 2 is their next kind of big game. We'll see.
That's in April or so. Right?
Yes, in May. April or May. So we'll see how it does for them. We'll see Indiana Jones, Avowed. We'll play these games on other systems and see how that goes.
And who wants to play an Indiana Jones? Oh, well, maybe is that crazy to say?
Well, I don't like Indiana Jones.
I don't like Indiana Jones that much either.
But I care about this game because it's the Wolfenstein people.
And
those games are great.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I just feel like this is their Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, but I like it's first person. I think that's cool.
Oh,
I like that people got mad about that. But that's not till end of the year. We got
We'll come back.
We'll circle back to the Indiana Jones takes. But Zach, Gabe, thanks so much for joining us here for this eulogy for Xbox. We'll all remember Jay Allard and his his suit jacket hoodies that he would wear on stage. Right. So with that, I'll talk to you next time.